I never hit the live button. That wasn't on that whole time. Okay, hey. All right, we are live now. Welcome everybody, 1208. Yep, hope so. I think we're all good. Let me just find one last button here. We'll be good to go. This is your glorious tech team right here. Me talking to an iPhone. Sorry, that's not true. Our glorious tech team is back here. The Salters. Excuse me. And if you too would like to be a part of the glorious tech team, talk to me. We'll get you plugged in. All right, we're going to sing a few songs and then we'll preach a little early if people are here. If they're not here, we'll preach a little late. So, with that being said, would you stand and sing with us? I think you take on whatever posture you like once we get going. It's been ages since I broke a string. Bad news.
It just happened.
I broke a string. Yeah. Good news. I made Casey bring his guitar last week. Bad news. I take advantage of that all the time. Casey?
Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you. One second, please.
What string was it, by the way? Oh, okay.
You know, we're all a little broken, aren't we? When you, no, I don't have an analogy.
In other words, there's a lot of times where a lot of us want to snap. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's the pastor's heart right there. Turn whatever just happened into a message. Casey, you can give me a knee. Good enough. A lot of songs that we're singing today are about resurrection because that's what we're preaching on. And maybe you're sick of it because I talk about it a lot. Too bad we're going to talk about it again. The Bible makes me. Paul talks about it a lot. And today is one of the most beautiful passages on resurrection in the whole Bible. So these songs are going to be focused on that. You know, with Lazarus, the song we just sang, we think back to Jesus coming to raise Lazarus from the dead. Good news is, Lazarus got a second chance at life. Bad news is, Lazarus is one of the few people in the Bible who died twice. Good news is, he will be resurrected in the end, right? But that's what resurrection is. It's this time where we're raised back to life and we never die again. Jesus showed up in his life. He came, though it seemed delayed. He was way behind the schedule of everybody else. He brought him back to life. Jesus is coming back again, though he seems a little delayed. In the Bible, he said it'd be like 70 years, and here we are like 2,000. Not the first time it happened. In the Old Testament, God was like, I'm going to bring you all out of exile in 70 years, and then like several hundred years went by. God operates a little slower than we want him to a lot of times. But the good news is that resurrection is ahead of us, just as Jesus was ahead of them, just as he was ahead of Lazarus. So we're going to sing songs related to that. Let's do one more, and then we'll talk a little bit about resurrection before we sing the rest. His heart beats, his blood begins to flow, waking up what was dead a moment ago. His heart beats. Now everything has changed, 'cause the blood that brought us peace with God is racing through our veins, and his heart beats. His heart beats. And he breathes in, his living lungs expand, the heavy air surrounding death turns to breath again. Breathes out his word in flesh once more. The Lamb of God slain for us is alive and ready to roar. His heart beats. So crown him the Lord of life. Crown him the Lord of love. Crown him the Lord.
is dead. He must reign until no enemy is left. The last enemy to be destroyed is dead. The last enemy to be destroyed is dead. The last enemy to be destroyed is dead. He must reign until no enemy is left. The last enemy to be destroyed is dead. God, we are used to looking at death as a thing of science. It's a thing of nature. But you look at it as something with a capital D. You look at it as an entity. You look at it as something that can be conquered, as something that doesn't need to be there forever. You look at it with the end already in mind, that death too will be destroyed. That death will have its own death in the lake of fire. That will be a glorious day, as no one will be capable of entering back into death again. This is the beauty of our Christian mythology, our Christian truth of that which is to come. The hope that Paul talks about, a hope that is within us, not a hope like, oh, I really hope that's coming, but a hope like this is what is ahead of us. This is our future. This is our destination. The earth returned to us with immortal life. So help us as we fight against death now, and as death fights against us. Though we may be subject to it, we may see its pain as we bring heaven to earth. We may see it suffer, knowing that it already is on the timeline, that it already has an end put in place. We thank you for that hope. We now put our hope in you, King Jesus, who is the keys of death and Hades. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. You now see. We're going to keep singing about resurrection a little bit here, but before we do that, some announcements, and then let's hop into Romans. First off, you can give online at 1208greenwood.com/giving, or there's a box up here if you have things of the paper variety. You can throw it in there before you leave, before the end of the night. We still have pizza. Please, on your way out, take it. I've definitely ordered, not many, but more than our current population, so take that with you. I do have a question. The person that I had helping with this event tomorrow is unable to do it now due to a last-minute change. Spring Arbor New Roots. They're usually every year we go to Spring Arbor University to have a table about our church at something called the Lowdown, where there's like 50 businesses and churches trying to give information as to who they are. This year, Spring Arbor is trying something new, where there's an event called New Roots, which is the Lowdown, that's all for churches. We have a booth there, but I'm out of town, and the person I had filling in is now incapable of being there. So, if you happen to have time from 11 to 2 o'clock tomorrow, and you would be interested in filling that slot to give people information, give students information about who we are, what we do, and attempts to give them a chance to come join us here, let me know. We would love to get your help with that. So talk to me before the night is over, as obviously this is tomorrow. Thank you. Neighborhood groups, naps on Tuesdays, our house on Thursdays. This week at our house we are not meeting, though if you do plan on coming, touch base with me in case someone else in the group wants to take the night. Next announcement, 1208 bands. This week the men's group meets to see where life is at, to confess, and to talk about what the Spirit's doing in their life. It's about 1 hour, 7 to 8, and this week is the men's group. Mark Edwards will be leading as I am out of town for this whole week. So you can talk to him online, check in with him about being there, or just show up at 7, go in that room up there, and you can join for that. I want to give a quick update on the food truck. I don't have a lot of information about this, but I realize this has been much more of a board conversation than has been a church conversation. We recognize that, a year and a half-ish into COVID, it's hard to imagine packing this whole room full of about 90 to 100 people like we were doing pre-COVID. So, with that being said, we've been spending the last year and a half trying to think of what we can do to reach people in a safer environment and to adapt what we were doing with Dinner Church into a new way. And that has been looking into a food truck, where essentially we can drive to different areas of Jackson, especially disenfranchised areas, set up the food truck, serve food, have a service, a little music, a little preaching, and pack it up and head out. When we get to that, we're going to need leadership, we're going to need help. If you are interested in leading in some way, or taking up a lay leader position, or a deacon position, or growing in ministry, I would love to eventually, long game, have a different food truck night every week with different people from 1208 leading each one. If you are interested even in just working on one, those are the people I need to start with. So, talk to me. Let me know what your interests are and the ways in which you would give your spiritual gifts to make that happen. The board has some money in reserves that we've said we would be willing to put up to this amount of what you've been tithing towards a food truck. And we think that there is a grant within our conference that may match that, which gives us an exponential amount of room to work with this idea. So in case you're thinking, Jamin, we're just a small church. Look, there's only a few of us in the room today. We're going to raise money for a food truck. I'm bringing it up now to let you know, it actually at the moment seems a lot more tangible than you might think. A lot of people that I've spoken to are very interested in this and want to make it happen. So as we learn more, we're excited to see where God leads. Obviously, with the winter coming up and this being an outdoor thing, we may not really get gears working until the spring, but you may start seeing the efforts to make this happen in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. So pray into that and speak with me. If you just pray into this, it won't happen. If you pray into it and help it happen, it will happen. We're rethinking Dinner Church, our current society, and how we make that work. Okay. If you want to read along with me, Romans 8 is where I'm going. We've already done a little bit of Romans 8. We're getting towards the end of Romans 8 here. And Romans 1 through 8 is like the most important part of Romans. And we just, Romans 1 through 8 is an entire book that N.T. Wright has written. And then there's a second book for the rest of it. So we've gone through a lot of hefty stuff over the last few months here. And this is like one of the peaks of Romans. We've talked about how we are new creation. We've talked about how we are becoming, the seeds of resurrection are already in us, that we are becoming something new, that we are becoming something glorious. We've talked about the coming resurrection. We talked about Jesus as king over that resurrection. We talked about what it means for our lives to be subjected to King Jesus as we live right now and bring heaven to earth. We've talked about a lot of beautiful stuff. And Romans 8 is like the picture of all that is coming. And I'm going to start in Romans 8:18. So listen to these words. This is great stuff. This is powerful stuff. I love this. So Paul ended this point in Romans talking about suffering. Why does suffering not make a big deal to him? It's because of resurrection that's coming. Anything that we deal with now means nothing in comparison of that which is to come. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed in us. You hear that? The glory revealed in us. Glory is it's hard to define in the Bible, but a lot of times when you see it, it's like almost a substance of God, of spiritual beings, of Jesus. And here, You have Paul picturing that we're brought into the glory of Jesus, and there perhaps carry like our own sort of glory imparted to us. What does Paul say elsewhere? We've sang it at 1208 a bunch of times. We go from glory to glory to glory. There's a glory of the human just being human, and there's a glory of the saved human, the Christian, who's going to walk into a greater glory that is to come. The sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Something better is coming. For creation waits with eager longing for the revelation of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption, its bondage to corruption, and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for the adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But we hope for what we do not see. We wait for it with patience. When Paul uses the word hope, he's not just saying, I really hope resurrection is real. He's saying this is the hope that is before us. We know it's already there. It's the carrot dangling for us to set our eyes on and focus our life on what it looks like to live into that now. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. There's that word again, groaning. It's just coming up over and over in this passage. The Spirit himself intercedes for us with his groanings too deep for words. And he who searches hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. You're the saints. That word there in Greek, again, it's hagios. The literal translation is holy ones. In the Old Testament, holy ones are spiritual beings in God's divine counsel. Paul just called you that. In the Old Testament, sons of God are spiritual beings in God's divine counsel. Paul just called you that as well. You are the sons of God, the daughters of God, the holy ones, the saints. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. For those who are called according to his good purpose. That good might come in this life now, as God takes even your suffering and works it together for good. But even if you don't find that now, you will for sure find it later. For all things work together for good in the resurrection. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called. Those whom he called, he also justified. Those whom he justified, he also glorified. You are justified. We've talked about that in Romans. You have been made just. And the court system of the end times, as you come before God's throne, he sees you in his Son, Jesus, who has made you just in that moment. So as justice is ruled, you will be found on the inside of resurrection. But now Paul takes it a step forward. What is beyond justification? What is beyond being a righteous person? What is beyond getting through the courtroom of heaven at the end of time? It's glorification. It's the resurrected body. It's the son and daughter of God. It's the holy ones. It's you. God's divine human family entering into this new state of being in this immortal place of the new heavens and new earth. And this has always bothered me that I learned so much of this in the last few years. Guys, I have been a Christian my whole life. which Casey told me that can't be true the other day. So maybe not my whole life. I guess I didn't know about Jesus in the womb or something. But I can at least say I have gone to church nearly every week of my entire life. Is that safe, Casey? Fine. All right. Okay, thank you. How did I get to be 30?
How old
Are we on an odd year? 33. Yes? How did I get to be 33 and start to learn that heaven is on earth? That's the new creation. I spent most of my life with a truncated gospel that I did not understand and can't comprehend the hope that is before me. The hope that was put before me by the church for 3 decades was, Jamin, one day you will die and go to a place you can't understand and can't comprehend. You'll wear a body that makes no sense and walk on streets of gold. Have fun. Also, it'll be a worship service for like 3 trillion years. I hope you enjoy it. Ah! So do I, because I don't know what kind of hope is set before me. That sounds completely uncomprehendable. But the resurrection life that Paul just time, that the world that you now know right now, you'll come back to it, though also different at the same time. That the culture in which you live might have some kind of resemblance of what you know, but also Jesus said that it's nothing like the way in which we live now. Everything that is before us is this beautiful, wonderful resurrection life that you already know a little bit of right now because you live on this planet in a body. And the Bible preaches that you get to do that again in a glorified state, in a much better state, in a perfect state. Nobody told me for 30 years what the end of my story was. And if you're tired of living a Christian life that doesn't have an ending, I'm telling you right now. Because the ending makes a big difference as to where you're going. How you live right now is based on the hope that you set before you. And you can look at what the church has done when it's turned the hope into a disembodied state somewhere up in the skies. The earth doesn't matter. It's all going to blow up anyways. Forget about it. Pollution, big deal. What's going to happen to animals? It's like nothing matters in the current state of life except saving souls. When your setting is that I'm just going to go on to a disembodied existence that I can't comprehend. But if resurrection is this place that we all know in a much better and new form, then everything that you do right now matters. That's our whole mission statement at 1208. In Jackson as it is in heaven. Why? Because Jesus painted heaven as though it's been loaded up on a moving truck and has been sent to earth, but is only unloaded when his followers open the door and pull out the packages. God is trying to move in, not move out. I'll fly away is bad theology. It's half theology. I'll fly back is the finished portion of that. So yes, what you do with your life matters. How you live in Jackson matters. What you do to usher in the kingdom of heaven into people's lives, and what you do to tell people about Jesus and bring them into the resurrection. All of that matters. Paul talks here about groaning, 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 groaning. Why is everything groaning? It's because back in the day, in the Garden of Eden, we were given a mission. All of creation was created, then God made humans, put him in his image, and said, because you are in my image, you have control over the whole planet. I am gifting you with authority. You take care of everything that I have created. This is on you. In other words, God could have done everything himself, but that's not how he set it up. He said, you are in charge. This is your planet. The word for image is the same word as idol. In other words, if you look at a false idol, you're supposed to look at that and think of the God behind it. You are an image of God. So when people look at you as a human being, they're supposed to see the Yahweh who is behind it. Not that you are God, not that you are Yahweh. When people look at you, they should understand what God looks like, based on how you live, based on what you do. That's how it was set up. Leave Eden, eventually spread out across the planet, make the whole thing look like Eden, because that's where God's presence is, that's where his tabernacle is, that's where his temple is. Instead, we said, nah, God, your wisdom's pretty good. We think we're a little smarter. There was one thing you told us not to do. We're going to do that thing instead. And in doing that, we brought sin into the world, and it didn't just mess up humans, it messed up everything. When God sees what happens, he talks about all the curses that are all over the whole planet now. That thorns will grow, that tending the earth will be hard, that pregnancy will be difficult. You think it's difficult now. Women often died in ancient times giving birth. Think of how many people you know had a C-section. If they weren't able to have that kind of technology, they probably would have passed away. Everything gets messed up by sin. And Paul here talks about the groaning of creation because it's been subjected to us, made in the image of God, but not acting like the image of God. And that matters in every sphere of life. Yes, it does matter that there are chickens that don't ever get to sit down before they die. Yes, it matters that there are animals that are made to be so fat that their legs break underneath them. Things like cage-free is a gospel concept, because that's the world that you were given dominion over, and you can image God to the world. Or you can say, all I really care about is meat, all I really care about is myself, and when we live by greed, we live by the wisdom of humans instead of the wisdom of God, and we corrupt everything. So yes, creation is groaning. Chickens are groaning. When you pollute the waters, and a turtle has a straw stuck down its throat, an animal has a plastic thing wrapped around its neck. Creation is groaning. It wasn't supposed to be like this. This is not how humans were supposed to treat us. When animals are simply treated as food instead of creatures. Farmers who actually know the names of the things that they're going to eat versus animals thrown into a factory that are just going to be chopped up and we don't really care about anything else. That's a gospel issue. Creation is groaning. When we ravage rainforests, when out of our greed for more, we take from others, creation is groaning. When a select small amount of people carry all the wealth in the world, and they dominate other humans who are also given dominion, when dominioners are exerting power over dominioners, creation is groaning. When you buy the chocolate at the store that was harnessed somewhere from slaves overseas because nobody cares, creation is groaning. It was subjected to futility, not willingly, and it hopes for the resurrection that is coming when it knows that it will be set free. Creation is groaning, but Paul uses that word for you too as a Christian. You have the Spirit inside of you, and the Spirit is groaning too deep for words. So a lot of times people are like, I don't know, maybe that's tongues. He just helps us pray in groanings. That's great. I think we're connected to the same theme here of resurrection. The Spirit is in you, and it knows that the way that life is for us right now is not the way that it's going to be, and He's groaning inside of us. Jamin, while you were at the gym the other day, that person making fun of Arabic people and saying those horrible things, groaning, Spirit's groaning in me, shut up. How can you say those kinds of things? Shut up. When you see injustice, and you see racism on the streets, and you see someone persecuted, and you see a wife who's abused by her husband, the Spirit groans within you. This is not the way it's supposed to be, and it's not going to be the way that it is down the road, and things need to change, not then when we all die and fly away, But now, because heaven is coming to earth right now, resurrection is already here, but not yet. And when we act like none of that matters, we get the kind of stagnant American Christianity that we have, where the only thing that matters is the people in the room, and all the other things, well, earth is eventually going to hell in a handbasket, so who cares? Oh, resurrection is a new way. It's under a new king. And when you actually image him, when you actually show resurrection, the groaning sees it and gravitates towards it. That's what it's supposed to be like. Jesus said that the world would see our good works and glorify God who is in heaven. That you are a shining light on a hill. You're not stuck under a basket. You show the world what it looks like. That in the spiritual, if we see the world from a spiritual perspective, just complete darkness, there would be little lights called Christians everywhere, showing that resurrection is coming, that a glorious light is coming at the end of all these things, where God comes to earth and is so bright that there's never night again. Something better is coming, and right now the world is groaning for it. They don't all know it. And a lot of that is on us, because we don't always show it. In Jackson as it is in heaven. Resurrection in Jackson now as it is in heaven. Are you groaning for that? Or is faith like a side thing? Is it just like a description on a form somewhere that you fill out? Are you groaning for something more? Not later, but also now. Because the rest of the world is. And if creation itself knows that something better is coming, then we as sentient beings can also acknowledge something better that's coming. Not that a chicken's not sentient. I was thinking of like a tree or a rock. Give me a break here, okay? Creation knows something better is coming, and we join in that hope as well. So we're going to sing a few songs as we close out. I realize we only have 15 minutes, so we may only do one or two of them. 15-minute song. We may only do two of them instead of three. But these songs are about that coming resurrection. So as we push into resurrection, as we declare it now, let's also sing about it now. Create a throne for God to sit on, to rule over the resurrection, not just that's coming, but is already here. You take on whatever posture you like. Would you please start by standing with us? First song was a song I wrote a little bit ago. We played it here once, so it may still feel new, but this one is about the resurrection of you, about the body and life that you will put on. The one that we're currently living in and the one that's coming. So as you learn it with us, sing it with us. Grass on the mountains of West Virginia, towering above the interstate. The stars look like specks o'er the waves of Carolina, but I am but a breath to the days. What am I but nothing in their gaze? What is man that you are mindful of them? Crafted from dirt, yet you call them your friend. Little lower than the heavenly beings up above, you put glory and honor on them. And what is man that you are mindful of them? That you place the whole earth in their unfaithful hands, to give them dominion to mirror your kingdom. upon them. What is man that you're mindful of them? What if I care the tiny particles around me, the molecules I can't see and breathe? 2 trillion galaxies spinning through the cosmos, but to you they look like ants twirling through space. So who am I that you would see my face? What is man that you are mindful of them? Crafted from dirt, yet call him your friend. Lower than the heavenly beings up above, put glory and honor on them. And what is man that you are mindful of them? Place the whole earth in their unfaithful hands. Give them dominion to nearer the kingdom. The image it rests upon them. What is man that you're mindful of them? What is man that they should live beyond the stars and height and width, while the gods of old are sent to their demise? How can flesh and bone replace the beings who daily see God's face and join the ranks of the great council in the skies? How do humans soon become the ones who rise up with the sun in the new heavens and new earth with Jesus Christ? And if the gods have failed to rule, please conform us to your truth and make us righteous, perfect beings who share your eyes. For the bodies we once knew were prone to wander from the truth and things, condemning the false gods like men to die. So make us one with you in love, your spirit rest on us like doves, and out of the grave a new creation it will rise. Beings of justice, beings of peace, pure in heart, righteous and king, made of earth and made of heaven, all alive. Recognize the true sin, the sons of God, the Son, repent by the faithfulness of Jesus justified. What is man that you're lifting up? Counted like dust and like stars up above. Angels of heaven, you brought resurrection. The image of Christ upon us. What is man that you are lifting up? Counted like dust and like stars up above. Like angels of heaven, you brought resurrection. The image of Christ upon us. What is man that you're lifting him up? $200,000 away, yet the moon tucks the waves in the sand. A brilliant blanket of liquid and salt, as white-crested pillows touch land. The sun she brings atmospheres to life, dousing a ring on the sky. A beautiful portrait on crystalline heights as clouds gently billow behind. This is the age we now live. How glorious the age that's to come. Emotions will pass, just imagine what's next when all that is finished is done. The earth bears her witness to our wrath, begging justice for all that has passed, and the heavens cry to validating the truth as the gavel is placed in God's hand. See the tongue of the sun like a sword, does his words justify and condemn? As once earthly people where evidently stand to shed thrones, the judge angels within. This is the age of our sin. How glorious the age that's us known. Our saltwater tears wipe away with our fears as God clothes the earth like the sun. This is the age we now live. How glorious the age that's to come. Oceans will pass, just imagine what's next when all that is finished is done. And I see the things that I'll never see again, that I'll never need again, that I won't make it to the end. And greater things will be spoken in time again. Resurrection sees within, Spirit bursting, life again. Oh, in deadness, bones to skin, bringing all this pain to end. Further up, further east. Eden calls the holy ones back home to eat from a tree left behind. Her arms dance about laying the cool of the day, grasping the fruit of new life. When past becomes future once again, we will rest in the presence of friends, toasting our cups to the riches of love as the glory of glories begin. That was the age we once lived. How glorious this age that's to come. The oceans are born, something better has dawned. Heaven and earth are now one. yet. As we stand on the precipice of death, but death too it will die and will descend from the sky. Leave this age far behind. God, I remember when I ended this song, I wanted it not to resolve. But I wanted that last chord not to go back to C, which makes you feel like the song is over, but to leave it in the middle, waiting for the end, because that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're waiting for the resurrection. We are in unfinished territory, but at the same time, it is already done. So we leave church on an F, waiting for you to resolve. And in the meantime, we live as though the song is still going. And we continue to sing. Would you sing? Amen. You're dismissed. We'll catch you guys at either the many events we have going on throughout the week, or we'll see you next Sunday. Thanks. Thank you.